Hi, welcome to the channel. My name is Mike. This is the Legally Blind Geek YouTube channel where we focus on overcoming low vision challenges. Today, we're going to take an in-depth look at common misconceptions, misunderstandings folks have about low vision. Friends, family, acquaintances, and even those of us that have a visual impairment fall victim to these at one time or another. So, with no further ado, let's go ahead and let's just pull the curtains back and just get straight into exploring misunderstandings folks have about visually impaired people, low vision, and how to avoid those and avoid that hurtful situation that we often find ourselves in. Sound good? Here we go. Okay, let's just jump straight into one of the more common misunderstandings folks have about low vision. And that's generally when we're in a social gathering. We're out and about town, we're out shopping, we're doing whatever, and we come across as being snobbish or aloof because we don't recognize people. You know, we might be 20, 30, 50, 10 feet away from somebody, and they're giving us a, hey, how's it going kind of look, and we're all into what we're doing. We don't see them, so we don't recognize them. It's not that we're being rude. It's just, hey, I don't see you. I didn't see you. Or maybe more to the point, with all the noise and the stuff going on, if I did hear you, I didn't recognize your voice. These are all common problems that people with a visual impairment, especially those of us that are legally blind or dark blind, that have no concept of what's going on around as far as visual acuity or visual cues. And those of us, like me, that's legally blind, I don't recognize you. And it's not that I'm being snobbish. It's just a lot of times, and I've done this, maybe you've done this, I've started interacting with someone thinking they were somebody else just to discover they were a complete stranger that had no idea who I was or what I was talking about. So these are those uncomfortable social situations that we find ourselves in that offend a lot of people, that they just misunderstand what our contentions are or our intentions are. Make sense? So that's a really biggie. I'm not ignoring you. I just don't see you. I'd love to hear from you in the comments section down below. Have you ever experienced this? Have you witnessed anybody else going through this troubling time? It's a good time to ask you, if you're new to the channel, maybe you want to consider subscribing and click that all button so you get made aware of when we post new content. For our subscribers, thank you for coming and all your support. Looking forward to hearing from you in the comments section too. Now let's get into another misunderstanding. What do you say? Okay, this is another one that happens out in social events. A lot of times people are wanting to be helpful. They've kind of realized that maybe you're stumbling, maybe you're lost or whatnot. So they want to come up and they want to grab you by the arm and say, here, come on, come over here. You want to be over here. You want to get out of the way. And it might be well intended. It might be that you're getting ready to walk out in front of a bus or a train. Got it. Well-meaning. But this can be hurtful. One, you never know how fragile some folks might be, or you may not realize how frightening that can be when somebody's out in a stressful situation, they're lost, they're turned around, they're trying to find their way, they're stumbling around, and here's somebody that has no business doing this really, grabbing them by the arm saying, hey, get out of the way. To save a life, I get it. But to be helpful, that's not really the right way to go about doing that. Have you ever experienced this? Let me know in the comment section. What do you say? Now, let's move right along here. Another situation that causes misunderstandings is if a visually impaired person, case in point, I was at a softball game at a school that I hadn't been to before, one of the high school games that my daughter participated in. And I was at the ticket taking counter. A lady was sitting there, busy, had her head down, counting money and all this kind of stuff. She had a lot to do. I get this, okay? But I had to ask her, hey, I'm visually impaired. If you wouldn't mind, can you give me an idea where the men's room is? Because, it'd been an hour in the car, and I had maybe a little bit too much of my unsweet tea, and the old bladder was going, you ever been there? So with this motivation in my mind, I'm like, I really need to find some place where I might have to find a bush, okay? Not cool. Try to avoid that. So I asked and she was an older lady. She was a volunteer, or maybe not. She probably was part of the school faculty, because that's who mans most of these tables, these booths, is somebody that's, an alum, or they could be, getting a little money on, for being there. But anyway, they've got a job to do. Let's let them do their job. I'm dragging this out, I know, but this is I'm just trying to set the stage for you. So I asked the lady, can you tell me where the men's room is? And she's kind of like, yeah, over there, the blue building, the red door. I'm like, okay. I see where she's pointing, over there, but she's talking about several hundred feet away. Keep in mind, I'm legally blind. I've got my white cane with a red tip on it. I've got my dark sunglasses on. I've already told her that I'm visually impaired. I have problems seeing things. And she's giving me directions as though she didn't understand what I was trying to get across, or she was just tied up in the moment. So these are misunderstandings that create uncomfortable situations that can be a little bit hurtful. And, what do you think? You ever experienced something like this? I'd love to hear from you in the comments section down below if you've got some helpful tips as to how maybe I would best avoid that situation. Maybe avoid's not the right word. Maybe a better way of asking or making it known that, hey, I'm visually impaired. I need a little bit more help than just over there, the blue building with the red door. One, I can't see colors. Two, it's a couple hundred feet away, so I see where you're pointing, but there's a bunch of buildings over there, right? Okay, I'm belaboring the issue. Let's move right along. What do you say? Here's another one that's a social thing. Eye contact. For a visually impaired person, eye contact may not mean exactly what you think it is. It's all about visual cues. When we communicate back and forth as sighted individuals, or people that hear and see and all this kind of stuff normally, you don't understand how difficult it might be for someone that's visually impaired to communicate with somebody via eye contact being misleading. What I'm trying to say is, if you're in a noisier environment and you're talking back and forth, sighted people, whether you realize it or not, watch people's mouth move, watch their eyes, and they get emotion. They get a better understanding as to what somebody's trying to communicate. When you're visually impaired, or even those that can't hear, lose the inflections. We lose the watching the mouth move to see what somebody is saying. Makes it hard to communicate. So me making eye contact with you, a lot of times for me, I'm just looking at your face because that's where the sound is coming from, but I can't see your eyes. I can't see your face. If I'm looking straight at your face, all I see is gray. I have to use my peripheral, which means I either have to look up like this, where it looks like I'm looking past you, so I'm not really engaged with you. So eye contact, okay? I'm looking above you. I'm not engaged with you, okay? Another one, I have to look down. Now, ladies, you probably can see where I'm going with this. So if I'm talking with a lady that has fashion conscious, okay, and I'm trying to catch in my peripheral what her eyes are saying, okay, or her mouth is saying, or whatever, I don't want to look up because now I'm looking above her. I'm being rude, I'm ignoring her. But if I look down so that I can catch her with my peripheral up here, hey, eyes are up here, guys. Make sense? So eye contact or trying to make eye contact may not mean exactly what you think it does. Make sense? Cool. What do you say we move on to something else? Okay, let's change gears. We've been talking about social interaction, social outings and stuff like that, and the misunderstandings that arise from, being, low vision, visually impaired. And a lot of times, low vision is misunderstood because, if you're dark blind, people know what dark blind is. Sometimes they misunderstand what legally blind is. We're not going to talk about that too awfully much, but like 80 or 85%, depends on the numbers that you look at, of people that are diagnosed as being blind are actually legally blind. That means we have a visual acuity that is below a certain standard, which we can talk about that some other time. And then we also have that part of the population that as we get older suffer from age-related vision loss, whether it's macular degeneration or a whole host of other ailments or causes. Okay, the situation kind of creeps up on those folks. They creep up on us as we get older and our vision's not as good as we think it is sometimes. So then that's when our mind's eye and all these other things that we talk about come to play and cause some issues. And while I'm talking about the mind's eye, now might be a pretty good time just to suggest. Have you seen this? It's a little book that I had written about vision loss. I'll leave a link in the pinned comment section down below if you'd like to check it out. I would really appreciate your support. So now let's move on from the social stuff to around the house, the home. And probably one of the more common issues that people have, especially those that are trying to maintain a certain level of independence, is being able to prepare their own food. That means working in the kitchen or around the grill or whatever your situation might be as far as how you prepare your food. The kitchen can be a dangerous place for the sighted people, let alone somebody with a visual impairment. So it gets really frustrating, or it's hard to understand not to leave a clear glass container on the countertop. As a visually impaired person, I can attest to this. I don't see a clear glass. The wife leaves her wine glass unattended on the counter, and I'm doing stuff and I sweep around it. Guess what ends up with the clear glass wine glass? It ends up on the floor. And glass being fragile, it ends up creating a safety issue, one, and I just destroyed the wife's favorite wine glass. Okay, maybe it's not a wine glass. Maybe it's the kids' cup that they use for milk or juice or whatever. I think you see my point. So in the kitchen, a lot of times, and this is, vision skills and stuff like that, or living skills 101, contrast is king. Okay? Enough said about that. Another thing is organization. It's really difficult for a visually impaired person or a sighted person to understand why it's important to put stuff back, maybe not exactly where it came from, but close enough that it can be found. It's like, okay, if you've got a silverware drawer and you've got a little slot for knives, forks, spoons, and other utensils, it's probably a pretty good idea not to clean that thing out. Well, it's a good idea to clean it out, but when you clean it out and you clean everything in there and you go put it back, maybe it's a good idea to maintain that sense of order. Put the forks back where the forks were, put the spoons back where the spoons were. See what I'm saying? Same thing with putting stuff in the cupboard. You might want to put your lighter items like pastas, cereal boxes, and stuff like that, maybe up on a higher shelf. One, they're lighter, they're easier to put up and take down, and two, they're kind of you got an idea of where they're going to be, the visually impaired person does. And then you might want to put your canned goods on the shelf by themselves, and you might want to kind of organize them from, vegetables to juices to whatever you might have in a can, instead of having it all mixed up. It's kind of like, I don't want to get a can of Rotel when I'm looking for a can of chicken noodle soup, or I'm looking for a can of condensed milk. Granted, we got our magnifiers, wherever my magnifier's laying at right now, that we can pop up there and we can look, but we don't want to have to take the time to look at every can with our magnifier and try to search, because by the time we find what we're looking for, we will have forgotten what we were looking for, why we were looking for, what we meant to do with it. So we have to start all over again. Make sense? So that's one of those things that folks don't really understand until maybe you want to just put a blindfold on and go to your kitchen and try to make a grilled cheese sandwich. You'll see what I'm talking about. Okay? So the kitchen is one. Okay. Let's talk about lights. Leaving lights on, leaving lights on. Lights are important for most people. Visually impaired people, especially somebody that's legally blind, will discover that certain lights work better for them than others. Okay? And some folks will find that leaving a light on in the bathroom all the time makes it easier for them to find the bathroom, especially at night. So it might be just a night light or something like that they can see the light, they can kind of key in on that, so they don't have to turn all the lights on in the house. They just kind of move towards the night light. Make sense? Okay. And for others, a reading light is a good thing, especially if they use a light to use a magnifier with to be able to read text, and they're not using an e-book or an e-reader or the adaptive software that they might have on their computer. So understanding why certain lights are the way they are, like I like a more blue light. Some people like a softer light. Now I'm kind of wishy-washy on that personally, because I need a really bright blue light so I can see some contrast on some detail. But on the other hand, a lot of times the really bright blue lights hurt my eyes after a while. So it's kind of a mixed bag. Make sense? What about you? What experiences do you have with lights? Do you have a particular light that works best for you? I'd love to hear from you in the comment section if you wouldn't care to share. The next thing that I've got here on my little list, I keep looking over to kind of keep me straight, is, and I run into this with my wife a lot, going back to the kitchen. My wife loves to bake. And my wife she's not a short lady. She's 5'8", 5'9", which for those of you that don't know, I'm not a short guy either. I'm, 6'6". I'm an average sized guy. Okay. But my wife would differ. She would beg to differ with that. And here's why. A lot of times I will put stuff with that lighter stuff at the top, heavier stuff at the bottom of a cupboard. So I will move stuff around to where it makes sense to me. Like I want my seasoned salt, my pepper, my garlic powder and stuff like this on this shelf, because it's easy to get to and it's lightweight and it's, that kind of stuff. Well, my wife loves to bake. And believe it or not, she doesn't use as much salt and pepper and garlic powder and stuff like that in her baked goods as maybe I do when I'm doing chicken or pork or making a soup or a stew or a chili or something like this. So we're always fighting over, where did my doggone chili powder go? It was right here. Now it's not chili powder, now it's cinnamon, which, okay, if you're doing cinnamon sugar type stuff, okay. Or if you're one of those folks that likes to put cinnamon in your chili, okay, but that's not me. See what I'm saying? So, where's my stuff? My wife and I have to come up with some arrangement as to this is where we're going to do it, why we're going to do it, because I can reach the top of the ceiling at 8 foot to get something. My wife can't, unless she's got a pair of tongs and a step stool, which is kind of unsafe. You don't want to have that kind of stuff going on in the kitchen if you don't have to. Space being limited, you might have to. But we've worked it out. So, make sense? Love to hear from you. Comment section down below. And by the way, if you're finding any benefit to this at all, give us a thumbs up. If you don't like it, you can always give me a thumbs down. That's okay. It's important to just kind of interact. Let the Google machine know that I'm doing something of benefit to you, or maybe you want to share it with somebody. That'd be cool too. Now, what's next here? Oh, okay. This is kind of an emotional thing, but it does happen around the house somewhat. And I try to avoid this sometimes to my fault. And that is asking for help. My independent streak is a mile wide, as some people would say. So if I can do it, I'm going to do it. And if I can't do it, I'm going to figure out a way to do it anyway to keep from bothering somebody else, because everybody else has got their own things to do, right? So asking for help and knowing when to ask for help and how to help is a whole topic that I could spend a lot of time on. But what I have discovered, and in my household especially, and yours might be different, my wife and my daughters, who are around the house most of the time, the boys have grown up, they've gone to college, they've got their jobs, they've got their careers, so we don't interact as much as we did when they were kids. But nowadays it's more the wife and our baby daughter, which is going to college, but that's okay. She's here, she lives here, yada, yada, yada. Point is they stay out of my way, and they don't offer help unless I ask for it. And then we've worked this out. When I ask for help, I ask for something specifically. Like, can you tell me where the almond milk is? I don't seem to find it where it normally is. And more times than not, the wife will say, well, I used the last of it making my drink or whatever. I have to get some more, so that's why it's not where it's supposed to be. Because the girls are really good about putting stuff back where it needs to be. So I don't really have a lot of need to ask for help in that regard. Now, when I get something in the mail, say like I've got some prescription coming in from the VA, it comes in a big white envelope. I can use script talk to find out what it is and where it goes. But I am really not very good at using that little pill cutter to cut stuff in half. If you haven't had to experience that, you're blessed. For a lot of the prescriptions that I take a really small dose of it. It has to be cut in half. I have to ask for help for that because that's not something I can do. I've tried it, and I'll end up cutting my finger on that little razor blade thing that's on that nail cut or that pill cutter, or I will cut it and I'll end up with it who knows where. And I don't want to drop some of these little medications on the floor, because as soon as I do, the little puppy's going to lap it up. I may not hurt her, but I don't want to take that risk. So those are the kinds of things that, for safety's sake and for convenience, I ask for help for. You might be different. I'd love to hear from you in the comment section. I know I keep saying that, but this is a community. I would like to be able to share my experiences with you, you with me. We come up with something that works for, if not us, maybe somebody else that watches our videos, okay? So thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video, to give us a like, to comment, and to share your experiences with us as well. I really do appreciate it. I really do. And I do take the time to respond to every comment that I've got. So there's the emotional cost for asking for help. You just need to suck it up and know what your strengths and weaknesses are and ask for help when you need it. Okay. So now let's talk a little bit about transportation. For somebody that's visually impaired, transportation takes on a life of its own. For folks that, when I went to the blind rehab center at Hines, I spent some time in Chicago area, the Chicagoland area, with mass transit and all these kinds of things. And I learned that transportation can be easier for somebody with a disability if they can learn to trust people and to ask for help when you need it. And what I mean by that is, we can't drive. It's not really safe to ride a bicycle, especially in a city like that. So most people will tell you, if you're walking, hey, do you know where this is? That once they see you get the white cane with the red tip, they're more than willing most of the time to give you some helpful hands. Yeah, there's some a-holes out there, but very far and very few between. So use Uber, use some of these other services that are available to you, mass transit, the buses, the trains and stuff like that. I've found that most everybody in these areas are really helpful regardless of what you hear about on the news. Okay. Now, when you're in a rural area, it's important that you don't not ask for help getting to and from someplace, but you don't want to wear somebody else out at it, because you don't want to keep having your wife, in my instance, take out work, or the kids not do what the kids want to do, or this neighbor or that neighbor, this friend or that friend. So you need to find and you need to mitigate your transportation needs so that they fit your situation. Because let's face it, we all can't afford to spend $20 on an Uber ride 3 or 4 times a week. Once or twice a month, yeah. So you have to be careful with your appointments, and you have to be careful with where it's at, the time of the day, and keep all this stuff in mind when you're setting up or requesting help with transportation. Does that make sense? I hope so. Okay, and then the last thing that I'm going to cover, well, no, I've got several other things here, but for right now, to go along with getting rides to and from and transportation and stuff like that, you have to worry about navigating or navigation. As an old FO myself, land navigation was always a strong suit of mine, and dead reckoning, and just having a feel for where I was at, northeast, southwest, and all that kind of stuff. It's just something that my brain does. Not all people do that. So when you want to navigate, you almost have to plan your route ahead and think about who you're going to be communicating with, how you describe your navigation style. If you're going down the road to so-and-so's house and you've got somebody that's never been there before, you need to be able to tell them how to get there. And some people would know, well, if you go to the 4-way stop and turn right and look for the big red barn, that's where we're going. We're going to go pick up some pumpkins or something like that from the farm store. That's the kind of directions, navigation you want to do. For other folks, like my oldest son, you just tell him, hey, we need to go north on 41 for about 15 clicks, and we're going to come to X interchange. We're going to go west. See what I'm saying? So you just need to navigate and learn to communicate that way. Or if you're not comfortable with it, you just say, hey, here's the address that I need to go to. Can you plug that into your GPS and get directions that way? And if they don't have that capability, if you've got an iPhone, like I do, like I'm recording on right now, you just say the magic word and ask for directions, and she will comply. 99% of the time, she is dead on and will get you right to the front door. Make sense? Cool. What navigation method do you like to use? Are you a iPhone person? You use GPS in some other form? I know there's a lot of them out there. I'd be interested to see what works out best for you. While we're talking about navigating and transportation and stuff like that, I think it's a pretty good time to mention or to bring up the subject of how people walk, their walking speed and stuff like this. My wife and I, we run into this a lot because she walks slow and methodical, and I'm a tall guy. I take long strides, and I've got a habit of seeing where I need to go, and I want to get there as quickly as I can. Well, that can be a bad thing. And by that, I mean, if I'm not using my long cane and I'm doing the tap, tap, tap method in an unfamiliar location, I'll trip over things. Whether it's a manhole cover, or whether it's a curb, or whether it's something that's in the path that I didn't recognize. If I walk too fast, I outwalk my ability to tap, tap, tap to clear the path with my cane. So I have to slow down and I get a rhythm going so that I can detect something that somebody may have left in the path, or a natural obstacle that might be in the path, where it might be a tree root, or it could be Lord knows what. So speeding up, slowing down, generally that's why I walk slower than I would normally would. Now, if I'm out at a cotton picking softball field, or I'm out in an open field, or I'm out somewhere where I know there's nothing to trip over, and I've just got to get from point A to point B, that's when I can just kind of get into the route step and go. Make sense? So matching your walking speed to the terrain, to the task at hand is important. Because especially in a strange building or a strange house, I use a lot of indicators. One is sound location. I hear that how sound is echoing in the walls, or off the walls, or off the ceilings, and I can tell if I'm in a narrow space or if I'm in a wide open space. So in those kind of situations, I may speed up or I may slow down. It just depends on if there's a lot of people around. I can't go very fast. So these are all reasons why we walk slower, or should walk slower, or maybe faster. So this is running a little bit long. Maybe it'd be a good time to just end on that and ask you to kind of chime in on the comment section. Let me know what you think about this content. Share some examples of your experiences with all of us. Ask your questions. And I really do appreciate you taking the time to spend with us and share your experiences, and hopefully this has benefited you in some way. If you're new to the channel, if you haven't already, consider subscribing. Leave us a comment, question, and I'll leave a copy, or I'll leave a link to my book in the pinned comment section below this video. I'd appreciate it if you just kind of check that out. You can get a digital copy, you can get a paperback copy. You'll find it useful. I really believe you would. Thanks again. Make it a great day. I'll catch you next video. Bye-bye.